Thank you guys so much for joining me for another episode of Keeping It Real with America's Supermom. I am excited to have my next guest here. We have Theresa, who we got connected through V Team, which is a networking group that we are a part of. And I believe we connected on a summit through a networking breakout session. So I'm really excited to have her here today so that she can share her wealth of insight and knowledge with us all as we are moving forward with our businesses and trying to be better versions of ourselves. So at this time, I'm going to give Theresa the floor so she can introduce herself and tell us a little bit about her before we dive into the interview.
Well, thank you so much, first up, Lachelle, for having me. It was such a joy to meet you at the Global Summit and then also have a chat again and get together and have just this brilliant conversation. And I think that tells you a lot too about myself, who I am. I love to connect with people. I love to really form strong relationships. And perhaps that's what caused me to leave my career in hotels behind as a hotel GM and jump into becoming a high performance lifestyle and success coach instead, and helping people, as you said, move forward in life and business, really, because I think there's so many reasons that we could stay stuck. And I believe that really life, does start beyond our comfort zones. And when we start to not accept stuck as a state of being anymore, and we decide that we're going to just move forward in whichever way and get ourselves the support to do it, beautiful things get to happen, like us having this amazing chat right now.
So true. And you know what? I am definitely here to take notes on this high performance and dealing from the hospitality industry. I remember my husband and we had two kids. And, I was so much of a high achiever. I was like, I'm going to help add some income to the house. And, at this time I was staying home with our two kids. And I said, I'm just going to work overnight at a hotel, right? Because it's the night shift. I'm sure it can't be that daunting. It lasted one day. Okay. I didn't even go back to get my check. I was like, this is crazy. Now, the issue was my husband just didn't value rest. It's like you come home and it's morning time. They're all chipper. People would call, he'd give me the phone. So, yeah, one day was all it took for me. Like I said, I don't know. That was a blessing for somebody else. I worked those hours and somebody else got that money. But so, with that in mind, I can only imagine the amount of work and mental. I don't know. I mean, it just mind boggling. So I'm excited to hear what you can share with us in terms of high performance. So first thing is, what are we getting wrong when it comes to high performance? How are we kind of self-sabotaging?
Oh God, how are we self-sabotaging? That's such a big question, really, because there's so many layers to that, really. But what I would say is, and you sort of allude to that as well, was saying that your husband didn't really value rest, and I think as high achieving women too, right? I think rest really isn't part of our vocabulary. Let's just be brutally honest for a moment, right? Like, I think you said this podcast is about keeping it real. So let's keep it real. For a lot of us that are high achievers, goal getters, that want to have a career, that care about, leaving a mark in this world, we're like, rest? What's that? Pausing? What's that? Self-care? Not for me. That's for somebody else, right? And so we have all these stories because really what's happened, the world has mimicked us one way for as long as we remember. And that's that we celebrate rapid acceleration, we celebrate one-hit wonders, overnight successes, like everything quick and fast is better, right? How can I have more faster? How can I do more quicker? So we really are in this, society now and have, built up to this space where everything that happens quick, fast, and has a huge result is like, yes, that's it, right? And so seeing that and growing up in that and likely having parents who've worked hard, And we've always said, if you want to make it in life, if you want to have a career, you're going to have to work for it. You're going to have to show up for it. It's going to be hard. Keep your head down, do it, push. And so we are wired in this way that is the only way we get to achieve. And so as high achievers, we particularly take that very seriously. And I have found in hospitality there to be an array of this type of personality. Loads of like A-type personalities, loads of go-getters that are like, yeah, let's do this. And so what ends up happening is we prioritize achieving and results and getting to our goals over everything else. And we will sacrifice personally, we will sacrifice our own time, we will sacrifice so much, all in the name of success, all in the name of our goals. Also, we could say, I did that. And now let's move on to the next thing. And so it's at the heart, that's at the heart of it. And high performance is really about sustainable success and sustainable intentional action for a lifetime.
I love that. That is just so good because the key is sustainable. What we do is we accomplish all these major things, but we don't have a plan of maintaining it. Someone had given me we were talking about things being microwaved, how you can get these things quickly. And one of the things about a microwave is you don't go to an empty microwave and say, oh, I want a hamburger or whatever it is. You would take whatever it is that you want to warm up and put it in the microwave. But the key with this concept is that you're putting something in there that's already made. So when people just get a product that falls in their lap, for example, the reason why they don't know how to maintain it is because they don't know what went into making it a lot of times. So this is us trying to do this get rich quick or whatever. If you don't know all the moving parts, you're not going to be able to recreate or even maintain because you don't have any clue as to why this goes into that and that goes into this, because you didn't do the groundwork or the foundation work. So I love that you said sustainable success. So what are some things that we can start practicing? We realize, hey, okay, I'm that high achiever. What would be the first step to taking some really intentional steps that could start on that road to sustainable success?
Absolutely. I think the first thing is really this deep awareness piece, right? Like start to understand what are the stories that you're telling yourself about slowing down, right? Like if you choose to leave the office at 4 p.m., God forbid, right? Or take a weekend, it's scary, right? What do you make that mean about you? Right? When you even think about like the moment the thought comes in, imagine I would leave at 4 p.m. today, right? What comes up? What are you telling yourself will happen? And most of the time, what you'll find is that either you're going to tell yourself that something bad's going to happen, or you're going to fall behind, or people aren't going to respect you anymore in your role. And it continues on like that. Or, to the parts that saying that if you slow down, if you rest, if you pull back, if you take a weekend, it may go as far as meaning that you're lazy, meaning that you're not worth the role or worth your position or worth in general, which is really gets quite deep and it's quite harsh, right? And so when we start to see what we're telling yourself about this action we're about to take that would feel good, and then we really restrict ourselves from it because we can't go there because in our head something bad is going to happen one way or another, then we end up continuing to stay in that same pattern and we'll just repeat the same action over and over again. But when you start to notice it, you can ask yourself, is that true? Is something really bad going to happen if I leave at 4 o'clock today? Like if I would bring that in a court of law and I would have a jury, and I would have to prove to them, could I find enough reasons logically that would prove that I'm right? And chances are, you're like, no, actually, it's just a story. It's just a
Mhm.
story that I'm telling myself. And so as we peel down these layers and we create this awareness, we're able to bring one powerful thing back, and that's choice.
Mm.
So if you get to 4 o'clock and you're like, okay, I kind of want to leave. And then you get that resistance feeling and you're like, okay, what am I telling myself? Right? Asking
Mhm.
yourself that. Figure out what comes up.
Mhm.
Ask yourself, right? Is that really true? Like, could I prove in a court of law that that is in fact true?
Mhm.
Yes or no? And 99% of the time, I guarantee you it'll be a no.
Mhm.
And then from there, you're like, great, okay, knowing that that is just a story I'm telling myself. What do I want to do? Do I want to leave
Mhm.
or do I want to stay?
Mhm. I love that. Because it really speaks to two voices being heard in your head at the same time. So if you have two people talking, you're not going to know what to do. So many times people label themselves as, like you said, lazy or, not focused or whatever. And, you think about it, you have this story in the background, but then you have another thing of maybe you desiring something different, but you're going back and forth between what you desire and the story. And I love that you bring up choice because so many people are not empowered enough to recognize that they have a choice. That doesn't even come on the radar. It's like, you just accept whatever your mindset is telling you at the time. And that's the thing that stops you from moving forward, or, you feel like it's pulling teeth and, in order to move forward doing something that you want to do. So I love that you mentioned that. So for somebody who is just now realizing this choice, so we have the awareness, what is something practical that we can do to empower ourselves? Because this is a long time mindset of, not being empowered to make our own choices a lot of times. We just kind of do stuff just because we've been taught that, or, the family believes it, or it's common in the industry and things like this. So, what would be like a first step once you have that awareness that we should start doing?
Absolutely. I mean, once you start to have a bit of a almost like a journal or like a book filled with the things. Like I like writing things down as well, like stories that are coming up, things I say a lot. It's funny that you spoke about being lazy. I used to tell people all the time that I'm lazy. I was 32 and a GM of a luxury boutique hotel, well on the way of turning that business around and building like a really an award-winning product, taken them to become from a 7 to an 8-figure business. And I
Mm,
was sitting around telling everybody how lazy I was. And people be like, oh, you're not lazy, right? So we pay attention. We start to realize, okay, here's all the stories that are going on, right? Here's all the stuff I'm telling myself. Can't go at 4, I would be lazy. Can't go at 4, people won't respect me. Can't go at 4, I'll get fired, right? Like this rabbit hole goes and goes. So when you have that, you also can ask yourself, what do I want to experience instead, right? So when it comes to that empowerment piece, what are some of the things I could do in my day that would make me feel empowered?
mm,
And you want to ask yourself that really in the morning before you start your day, right? And
mm,
it'll take some commitment from yourself for sure, as well, especially if you're going through this on your own without guidance from a coach or accountability from a friend, or maybe a colleague, right? Like you can get yourself support in this as well. But once you know, okay, what would make me feel empowered today? And you get really clear on that, right? And maybe it's okay, I'm gonna take my lunch break away from my desk, right? Let's start baby steps. I'm gonna take a 15-minute lunch break and I'm gonna step away from my desk instead of answering emails while I'm eating,
mm,
right? Like that would feel empowering.
mhm,
Okay, great. What else would feel empowering? Actually leaving today at a time that feels good to me. Maybe it's 5 o'clock and making it home for dinner with my family.
mm,
That
mhm,
would feel really empowering, right? So these are two, on a grand scheme of things, relatively small actions with
mhm,
a very big impact.
mhm,
So we want to start to get really clear on what it is that would help us feel empowered, and focusing on a feeling rather than an action first will help us to sort of reverse engineer the action. So rather than saying, what can I do? If I do that, how would I feel? We want to start with, okay, if I made that choice, I'd feel empowered, or I'd like to feel empowered. And then what are the actions I can take? Okay, the lunch break, going home to have dinner with my family. So now you're very clear, right? And when we have clarity, it becomes simple. And clarity is a key indicator for high performance, because when you have clarity, you're also more confident in actually doing the thing, right? Whatever the thing is. Because if you lack the clarity, you lack the confidence. And when you lack the confidence, you'll get back to that place where you're like, no, I don't have a choice. I can't do that, right? So awareness, focus on the feeling first. I love empowerment. I think that's a big one for a lot of people. And then ask yourself, what's an action that makes me feel empowered? Write her down, right? Put it in your calendar, right? Have a little thing come up at 12 that said, you made a decision this morning to take a 50-minute lunch break away from your desk.
I love that, because that really is so true. I went through this recently because, I love speaking because I think I'm so passionate about mental wellness, going through my own struggles with depression. But here recently, my daughter is, she's a singer and she wants to build her career. And so she asked me to be her manager. So as if I don't already have enough things going on. But I'm like, I'm really excited about being asked to have that type of leadership role in her career. So I'm like, of course I'm going to say yes. So as a result, it's like when I say yes to something else, that means I need to prioritize no for something else. So I have been doing these summits, and even though I love it, I love being able to be on different people's platforms, but there's that heaviness about the promotion. You got to send it out to this person and all this. And, they're like, hey, we need to get some more traction. And I just made up my mind, you know what? I'm just not doing any more summits this year. I can't do it, because I have too much on my plate. So something as simple as, and I love that you said like the email, you might say, oh, I have all these emails, but you might just say, I'm cutting off my emails at 5:00. If I haven't answered it or looked at it, then it can wait till tomorrow. Something like that can be life-changing for people, because you're like staying late. They keep coming in as you're answering one, another one pops in. So just small things that may seem small, but really are just, it's a boundary that you're setting. That's what it sounds like to me, which can be really empowering.
Absolutely. And, I think that most of us, again, we go to big things, right? Like we go to these monumental steps right away, and we completely disregard all the little things that we could be doing in a day, right? It's the same with choice. People say, I don't have a choice, but they make 1,000 choices in a day subconsciously. They chose the socks they put on. They chose to have a shower. They chose to have a coffee. They choose to have another coffee. They chose something for lunch. They chose to, they choose. We just do it so in our subconscious that we don't recognize. And then we talk about not having a choice. And I'm like, you've made like so many choices already today, right? Like,
so true. So true. I love that, and so it's all about perspective, just flipping it or tweaking it just a little bit, which really can totally change the whole outlook. It's like having a little piece of a window, that you could see some light, and then opening it up a little bit bigger and you just have a different perspective. So I love that. So, in knowing that, it's about telling ourselves these different stories and things like that. I love the way that you said, how do you want to feel? What are some things that you do in your own daily routine that helps you to be mindful of that? Because so many people, they start off, I know this was a thing for me when I was battling my depression. I would say, oh, I feel good today. I'm on top of the world. Turn on the news and my day goes to pot, because whatever the news had on, I'm talking about that. I'm getting demotivated, so now I don't watch the news. I really don't watch TV that much at all. But that's something that I've modified. But what do you do in order to keep you, on this plane of, recognizing that you want to be a high performer and maintaining that?
Yeah, it's really become like a full-on strategy that I use, but I always start by how do I want to feel? Like when I think about my life as a whole and have sort of like a big vision, like a really big vision. I think in like I have big vision, so that works really well for me. If you're like, when you hear me say that, then just think like, how do you want to feel like on a day-to-day basis, right? Like if you could feel anyway, what would all the words be that you come up? So for myself, I've always had, or recently really that started a couple of years ago, I had this itch that I wanted my life to feel somehow extraordinary and luxurious and elegant. And I wanted success, like that feeling of success. I wanted joy, happiness, lightness, energy, like spaciousness. Like there's so many words and emotions that came up for me. And so I started writing them all down. And similarly to what I already shared, every day I connect with that through a morning practice. I call it silent minutes. And it actually started with a 5-minute practice for me because I couldn't bear to do more. And what I started doing was, instead of getting up and grabbing my phone and answering emails before I had my morning tea or coffee at the time, I would say, okay, for 5 minutes, I'm just going to get up and I'm just going to be in my own energy, and I'm going to check in with myself. How am I feeling? How do I want to show up today? And what are some of the things I could do today? Even just one thing that would help me have more fun, feel more joy. Like you can put your words in there, right? Like something that would make me feel like I have an extraordinary life. And I would get really clear on that and really check in. And it started with 5 minutes, and you really want to do pretty well nothing, like no TV, no reading something. Like if the only one thing that you could do if you really feel like you can't just sit, because it can be hard, is journaling. So if you want to ask yourself these questions and then journal what comes up, that is totally fine. But it's really about tuning in and checking in where you're at energetically, where where's your headspace at? What's coming up for you? How are you feeling in your body? Does something hurt? Like, do you feel good? Are you feeling tired? Like, what's going on for you, right? And then really ask yourself, okay, well, what would serve me today? What would feel good? How do I want to show up? And for me, it's really sort of connecting with that vision and then really thinking about, okay, well, how can I show up today then, knowing that, for example, I feel a little tired. Like yesterday was a prime example actually for that. So this is how this unfolds in my day. I woke up yesterday, had a big day on Tuesday, loads of exciting things happening, had loads of calls, to your point, loads of live speaking, right? It requires a lot of energy of us. So yesterday morning, I woke up and I felt a little bit tired. So I took a little bit more time in the morning, and then I jumped on a podcast with Martina, who has a podcast in the UK. And I had a beautiful conversation with her and got off. And again, I was like, okay, I'm still like, that sort of uplifted me. But I was like, okay, there was more energy going out. And I knew I had only one more thing for the day, which was a mastermind call with my coaches. So I jumped on the mastermind call. And while I was on the call, I could just feel like my energy fade. And usually these calls really lift me up, right? But so really tuning in. And then I was like, okay, I was feeling tired. And here comes the choice, right? I got off the call and I was like, really 2 options. I can go slouch on the sofa and watch the Netflix for the afternoon, right? And do that, or maybe have a bath or whatever, but really don't move much. Or I could go out and go for a skate ski and move and get some fresh air. And I was like, okay, well, what would be good, not just right now, but also later, right? There was a comforting feeling about sitting on the sofa and just letting it all go. But then I was like, I don't think that's going to feel good later. I think what I really need is some fresh air, some activity, get out, just break up the routine, get off the computer, do something different. And so I headed out and I did a skate ski for an hour and a half. The sun came out. It was beautiful. and literally finished that, came home, felt super energized. I was like, that's it. And ended up sitting on my sofa, put myself a nice glass of rosé, put the fireplace on, and worked for another hour and got the last few things done that I,
Mhm.
wanted to get done in the day. And it felt
Mhm.
good. And then I turned it off. Right.
Yeah.
And so I got to the end of the day being like, that felt really good, even though
Mhm.
I started my day being like, oh, I'm kind of tired. So
Mhm.
when we really get intentional and when we just check in and be like, what do I need? Like,
Mhm.
what's the important choice for me? Right?
Mhm.
That's so huge. And I get that, sometimes we don't, we may not be able to have that much flexibility if you're working for someone else and you're going to work, if you're not working for yourself, or if you are working for yourself and you have a big meeting day and you find that, then really think about what are the things in between that you can do. Can you go for a 5-minute walk? Can you
Mhm.
have a better breakfast, right? Like, instead of maybe the bacon egg McMuffin, maybe you want to choose some granola with a little bit of fruit, right? Like,
Mhm.
really tuning in and making those micro changes, micro adjustments through your day, and resetting before every conversation, and being like, intentionally, what do I want to bring to this conversation? Okay, I want to feel like this is a fun conversation, or I want people, I want to
Mhm.
bring this one point across. Okay, can I make myself some notes if I feel a little bit tired, so I don't get on a
Right.
tantrum, right? So we can have all these beautiful small adjustments even when we're not having as much flexibility as maybe someone who's running their own business,
Mhm.
but we got to do it. And when we do it,
Mhm.
you end up just feeling so freed and so liberated from the
Mhm.
structure, and you're able to get more done too.
I love that. And I mean, it's so funny. I did a vision board last year. And our kids, we have them every year at the beginning of the school year. We all do vision boards so that they can have their own vision of what it is that they want to accomplish. And that was the first time I put adjectives on the back of the board. So the whole thing is like I had the pictures on the front, but energetic, inspired, inspirational, all those things I put on the back of the board. So it's so funny that you would mention that, because if we lead with that, it's our image of what that means to us rather than somebody else's image. And I'm all for that reframing, because you can put a picture on there, but what does that picture mean to you? You know, or those words, what do they mean to you? Because everybody has their own interpretation based on the story that we're telling ourselves. So I love that you said that. And I would challenge everybody to kind of start thinking about that, because if you say successful, what image comes to mind for you? It may not be a BMW, okay, that somebody else is driving. It might be a clock saying that you have time freedom. You see what I'm saying? So you have the ability, like today, my daughter, we took her yesterday. Well, I went with her yesterday to get her driver permit. So her appointment was at 4:30. We get there at 4:30. They hadn't even seen the people that were scheduled for 1:30 because it was this stuff with COVID, they only let so many people in. So we wait there for like 2 hours, and they told us we had to come back today. So I said, well, let me just make this appointment early in the morning when they first open. We get there. Her appointment's at 9. We're there until 1:30. So I'm just like, there are things that come outside of your control, but knowing how you want to show up makes all the difference. It's like she has school, but I just was like, I'm not going to worry about that. I mean, what can I do? It's like either I leave and complain and leave, or, I'm going to be dealing with this for the next, I don't know how many days till I am able to bring her back. So she was able to pass and everything. But I just say that, we have to kind of make those decisions about what may seem small but can be bigger down the road. Is just, hey, I value my time. I've already dedicated this time. I want this done. So we just stayed the course. But I love what you're saying. It's some great stuff that you're sharing with everybody.
Yeah, I think what you just sort of, reinforced there too is that we are in control of our own experience and how, like, we see the world how we are. So if you understand who you are and how you feel and how you want to feel and what you want to take out of any situation, right? How you want to show up, it's also going to reflect back to you in that same way. It's the same reason why, you know, you and I could stand on the side of the road and watch a situation unfold and then get interviewed afterwards on what we saw, and we would both have an entirely different story on what happened. Because we have a different perspective, like how you see the world out of your two little eyes, beautiful eyes, right? It's all a projection from what's inside your brain. Consciously or subconsciously accessible, it doesn't matter, but it's a mirror of your ideas, stories, anything that's in there. And, you know, so I think that's where so many of us just don't know how powerful we actually are.
That's great. So, what would you recommend for people, you know, when they want to make this transition? Because a lot of us now, you know, it's the beginning of the year, you're starting the new year off fresh, and, you know, you've got all these goals and aspirations. What's a realistic way that they should start trying to even make some goals, you know, that are practical, you know, because we talked about, like, you know, you start something and you're thinking you're going to be, you know, rich, or, you know, you get a business that's going to be 6 figures in 2 weeks, you know. So what are some things that we should remember, you know, strategies or whatever, when it comes to making our goals?
I love that you mentioned that, because I think the 6-figure business and you know, like, people are like, oh, follow these 5 steps and then you'll make
Right.
6 figures in a week. And I see so many people fall in that trap, right? Because they're like, oh yeah, totally. And then they do it, right? And then if it doesn't happen in 6 days, because we still see $0 coming in for our PayPal account, you know, we think that we're broken, or the system is broken, right? All that. And I have to laugh a little bit about that, but about that. But here is what I would say to that. So this idea of how you want to feel, this vision, right? Like, start by building a vision. You did a vision board. I've done a vision board. And it's really about connecting to how you want to feel. So if you know, if you want to have more spaciousness, if you want to feel financial freedom, or if you want to have more abundance in your life, right? Like, what are all the things that connect you to that? Like, what can you think of that you could do today that would give you the feeling of financial freedom? You know, sometimes it's, again, small things. Like, when I was going through that this year, and I was thinking, you know, what would make me feel like I had some extraordinary moments in my life and this luxury in my life. And, you know, one thing that came up for me was having fresh flowers in the home. I mean, this is like we're talking a small investment, right? Fresh flowers. But I didn't used to buy myself fresh flowers because that is a waste of money, right? Like, story, right? So, you know, obviously that came in from somewhere, God knows who at this point, but I was like, okay, flowers. And so actually already all along this, I mean, we're 28 days in, but I've been buying myself flowers. I've been given flowers by people arriving at my doorstep just when I needed more flowers. And so you can see, and every day, like, even just earlier before we jumped on this call, I was like, I love having these beautiful flowers in my house, right? Like, it was that moment of joy. And so joy is a huge one for me as well. So really think about the feeling that you're after, right? How do you want to feel this year? How do you want to feel when you get to December 31st, 2021? Right? Do you want to feel empowered? Do you want to feel confident? Do you want to feel like you pushed your business forward, you gained momentum, right? And then from there, really break it down and be like, okay, well, if I would feel like I had momentum in my business, what were some of the things I would have done this year, right? Like, almost look back with hindsight in mind, right? Like, imagine it's December 31st today, and you're looking back on this year. How do you want to feel? And then what are some of the things that you may have done this year that would have helped you get there? And that's how we can get to maybe some bigger goals. And then
Hmm.
if they're bigger goals, think about really breaking them down until they're so small that it seems like the most simple thing to take an action towards that.
Hmm. I love that. That's so good. Yeah. And that, I mean, that's just good to think about even the way that we want to feel. We can also bring that to our clients or, family, whoever it is that we're serving, because sometimes we forget that. I think it's important to remember about putting your own oxygen mask on first. When you're doing that and making yourself feel however you want to feel, you can have more abundance to be able to share that energy with other people. So I think that is really a great thing to bring up. So this has just been wonderful. I could talk about this topic all day. Okay. So, what is the best way for the audience to get a hold of you?
Absolutely. Well, best way to reach me is, well, you can go to my website, theresalambertcoaching.com. You can see what I'm up to and you can connect with me there. But the space where I spend most of my time is Instagram at Theresa Lambert Coaching. And that is a space I'm usually on pretty much every day. I love sharing stories. I have sparks of inspiration. And so I'm pretty much on there. So that's a great place to come into my world, find out what's happening, what I'm up to, get inspired. I love sharing value and sharing little tips around all sorts of different things around mindset, success, and how we can build high performance. So yeah, come into my world. And if it feels like you want to connect and just have a chat, send me a DM, reach out. Let's have a conversation.
I love that. And so, for all of my Clubhouse viewers, if you want to find somebody who can inspire you, because one of the things that we're finding about Clubhouse is it's linked to your Instagram account. So
Yes.
a lot of people have Instagram but haven't been updating it or putting any content. So I encourage you to follow Theresa so you can get some ideas and insights. So she's saying she's on it every day. So we can definitely glean from her experiences and what she's sharing in order to tighten up and tweak our own Instagram accounts, because I'm like in that boat myself.
I love it. And
So,
I'm on Clubhouse too, but like I said this morning in my room, I'm like a Clubhouse virgin still. So you can find me under my name, Theresa Lambert. And yeah, I mean, I love the Clubhouse. I love the conversation. So yeah, if you have a big Clubhouse crew, do connect with me. Just getting my feet wet with Clubhouse.
oh yeah, it's a lot of fun, but I've learned I've got to set a boundary. It'll be 3 weeks for me this weekend, and every weekend I'm like, it is a couple days I've fallen asleep listening to stuff. I'm like, I
Oh
hate
my
to
God.
admit it, but I gotta say the truth. Okay.
You're not the
But
first
yeah,
person that's sharing this, Michelle. Like literally, I've had this conversation with someone else, and she's like, "I'm obsessed." Now I'm on there all the time. I think that's why I've been like dipping my toe in, because I love
please.
chatting, and so I'm like, I could totally just get lost on that platform. And so yeah, I mean, with all of social media, right? Like it's designed to draw you in. So I'm like,
Yeah.
oh my God. So I've been very timid with it so far, but I feel like you'll see more of me this.
Yes. Well, just set a timer. Look, I'm giving people advice and I'm not following it. But you just have to set boundaries. Now, one of the things, like I said, is usually on the weekends, but still, I'm like, look, I have to get some stuff done because it's going to get me further behind. But the connections it's a deeper social intimacy because you're talking about real issues, where it's imposter syndrome or how you get being overwhelmed, parenting issues. I mean, it's such relevant topics that it just really can help you. And like I said, I want to be mindful of having balance because you can get all this information, but if you're not implementing, that's just as bad. So, what final words would you like to share with the audience today?
Final words. You know what I would say is really just really allow yourself to connect with your desires, how you want to feel, and then just every day take out like micro step, mini baby step towards that. And if you do that, it's going to start changing your life drastically and in ways that you're going to be like mind blown by what's possible when you take an inch of an action towards how you want to feel every day and connect with that now. I mean, how amazing is that?
Mhm. Love that. Great advice. So, for those of you that are watching, I encourage you to reach out to Theresa. These nuggets that she has given us are just can be life changing if you want to implement them. And again, it's baby steps. It is the consistency of doing small doses of just tweaking whatever it is that you're thinking or doing just a little bit so you can get on that road of high performance that you are desiring. So, we want to thank you guys for watching. If you do have any questions for Theresa, follow her on Instagram. Get your questions and we'll definitely see that get them answered. So we want to thank you guys so much for watching with us today, and we will see you on our next episode. Thanks again for watching.
Bye.
Bye, everybody.